When it comes to worksite detours, is there light at the end of the tunnel for cyclists? I've used a lot of detours during my time in Perth this year, and compared to Sydney, the experience is chalk and cheese. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is that the people in the main roads department over here, the equivalent of the old RTA, have adopted a lot of ideas from the Dutch, and that includes making conditions comfortable for cyclists as often as possible. And that includes making detours comfortable and easy to use. The second reason is the mining industry, and in particular, its dominant safety culture. You might think that mining is all rough and tough and knockabout, but that's certainly not the case with the big mining companies. They started becoming very safety focused about 30 years ago, and the systems and culture that they have created since then have percolated out into other industries, such as road construction. For example, someone that drives a truck or a bulldozer at a mine site for a few years is going to pick up a lot of good habits when it comes to safety. It's either adopt those habits and put them into practice every day, or get the sack. If that person then gets a job driving a truck on a city-based rail construction project, they'll bring that mindset with them. A lot of people over here have rotated in and out of the mining industry, so that safety mindset is widely spread and well entrenched. That includes managers and site supervisors. So I can see how if a project manager from the main roads department tells a roadworks crew that they need to design and run a safety detour or a safe detour for cyclists, they're not going to meet a great deal of resistance and grumbling. Safety is safety, regardless of who is using the detour. I don't think you get much of that Sydney attitude of, oh yeah, they're just cyclists, who cares about them? We'll just slap something together and ignore the complaints. That sort of approach just doesn't fly over here. The safety mindset overrides any animosity that people might feel towards cyclists. Then again, I've also seen quite a few construction workers cycling to these work sites on their bikes, so it's also quite possible that many of them have their own in-house person who can test how well a detour is working and suggest improvements. Cycling is widespread enough over here due to the widespread network that it's not an alien concept to road workers. On top of that, you see a lot of kids cycling to and from school along these paths, and what construction worker is going to carry on in such a fashion that they risk killing kids? I think because cycling is much more normalised over here, with more emphasis on functional transport and families rather than lycra, that it's not viewed so much as an activity for oddballs. Also, can you imagine how much trouble a project manager would be in if one of their own staff was injured whilst riding a bike to work through a detour at their own construction site? There'd be hell to pay. Now, not every detour over here is perfect. The one we're looking at here has been set up at Bayswater Railway Station for a major rail upgrade project. It was adjusted recently when they had to rip up a section of road. What you are seeing here is my first ride through the altered detour. Unlike many Sydney detours, this one was well marked, easy to understand, safe and comfortable to use. Notice how there are no signs anywhere telling cyclists to dismount and push, and the path is sufficiently wide for bidirectional traffic. There's absolutely zero risk of being doored by someone exiting from a parked car, and there are no dangerous obstructions like parked cars. In fact, there is almost no interaction with vehicles at all. The only thing you have to watch for is trucks entering and leaving the site, and that's managed by traffic controllers. Even the push buttons for the traffic lights are in a convenient position when you stop. I've only found one worksite detour that's a bit of a disaster area, like your typical Sydney detour, and that's in Northbridge. I should pop over there and film it as a contrast. But on the whole, disastrous and dangerous detours over here are the exception rather than the rule. Like I said earlier, they take site safety very seriously, and these detours are very professionally set up. My worry is that it will be a lot harder to develop this sort of site safety culture in New South Wales because there are relatively few workers who have experience of working in mining compared to WA. Furthermore, those workers are more likely to live in places like the Hunter Valley and not commute to projects in the inner city. Because of the fly-in, fly-out nature of mining in WA, you've got workers and managers with that mining safety culture living and working in every suburb. So, The big question for Transport for New South Wales and local councils is this: how on earth are you going to get that same safety culture to take hold in the road construction industry in New South Wales, particularly when you can't fly in people with this mindset from WA at the moment? The only way to change the culture is to bring in people who have that mindset baked into them, and I don't see any efforts being made at present to do that at any level. Site detours are going to continue to be a disastrous, dangerous mess until they start getting the attention they deserve.